The critics have been far too harsh on the Super Mario Galaxy movie. There, I said it. Because if you go by the review aggregator numbers alone, you'd think that this was some flashy, shallow, mildly disappointing sequel that looks pretty and then disappears from your brain. Rotten Tomatoes currently has it at 43% from critics and 89% from verified audiences. Metacritic has a 37 critic score, but a much healthier 7.8 user score. IMDb users currently have it at 6.5 out of 10. In other words, critics have been cool on it, audiences have been much warmer, and I am firmly with the audiences on this one because I loved it. Not liked it, not thought it was decent, not, well, it was okay for a children's film. No. I loved it, and I'm confident that if you're a genuine lifelong Super Mario fan, the kind of person who's followed this mustachioed lunatic across consoles, genres, spin-offs, sports titles, party games, and whatever else Nintendo decides to make him do next, there's a very good chance you will love it too. Critics have mostly judged it as a conventional animated film and found the plot too thin and the pace too frenetic. Rotten Tomatoes editorial roundup says that the first wave of reviews saw it as a made-for-fans and unlikely to win over new ones type of affair. I think that's exactly the point and exactly why I rate it so highly, because this film unfolds like a glorious love letter to the people who've loved this franchise all their lives, people like me. The first video game I ever played was Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System. My all-time favorite game is still Super Mario Bros. 3 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I've owned every major Mario platform, and that's before we start getting into Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Strikers, Mario Party, and every sport or side hustle this man has somehow found time for while allegedly working as a plumber. I'm still waiting for Mario Cricket, by the way. Sort it out, Nintendo. So when I say this film worked for me, I don't mean it in some detached academic clipboard in hand sort of way. I mean it worked for me exactly as it was clearly designed to work for me, as a giant, beautiful, high energy reward for decades of obsession. And that matters because I think a lot of the harsher reviewers are missing something important. They're asking this film to behave like a more conventional animated blockbuster when really it's operating more like a playable Nintendo shrine. It's trying to plunge you into the feeling of Mario, the wonder, the color, the movement, the musical memory, the iconography, the sheer cumulative joy of seeing all those pieces of your childhood and adulthood rendered with this much love and confidence. And on that level, for me, it absolutely soars. Now, before I get into the spoiler part, let's do the broadly factual stuff about the film. It was released in the US on the 1st of April, 2026. It runs 98 minutes. It's directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, written by Matthew Vogel, and again produced with the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto and Chris Melendarani, overseeing the project as he did previously. The returning core cast includes Chris Pratt as Mario, Charlie Day as Luigi, Anna Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, Jack Black as Bowser, Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. The newcomers include Donald Glover as Yoshi, Brie Larson as Rosalina, Benny Safdie as Bowser Jr., Issa Rae as Honey Queen, Luis Guzman as Wart, Kevin Michael Richardson as Kamek, and Glenn Powell as Fox McCloud. The production budget has been widely reported at around $110 million, and it's already become a major box office hit, passing roughly $629 million worldwide by its second weekend. That box office success also matters because it tells you that this isn't some critic-proof cult curiosity. People are turning up for it in huge numbers. Associated Press reported a $372.5 million global opening and then a worldwide opening of around $629 million by the second weekend, with a relatively modest 48% second weekend drop-off for a film this size. Audience reaction has been strong. A+ cinema score. Strong recommendations from exit polling. So this idea that this film is somehow failed because critics were sniffy about it doesn't hold up. Now, before I go any further, spoiler warning, because here on I'm going to go into story details, characters, and some of the key emotional beats and the post-credit scenes as well. Yes, there are some. So if you haven't seen it yet and want to go in fresh, go do that first and then come back to this video. The broad plot is simple enough. Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad, they get pulled into an intergalactic adventure involving Rosalina, the Lumas, Bowser Jr., and another Bowser family threat that pushes the Mushroom Kingdom crew into space and across a run of cosmic worlds. Trade coverage and mainstream reviews broadly describe it as a rescue mission and a galaxy-spanning chase with Bowser Jr. driving much of the central conflict and Rosalina formally entering the movie universe for the first time. And yes, the plot moves very fast, breakneck pace fast. Critics again, have absolutely seized on that. RogerEbert.com called it cute and breezy and rock stupid, saying it moves so quickly you get whiplash by the ending. Maybe he watched it in D-Box or 4DX. Variety described it as frenetic and disappointing. Rotten Tomatoes consensus says the world building is colorful, but the story is threadbare. Even the more sympathetic mainstream takes tend to say some version of this. This is dazzling, full of Easter eggs, and made very directly for existing Nintendo fans. And my response is, yes, correct. That is what it's doing. And I do not think that is a flaw, or at least not a fatal one, because what this film understands, and what a lot of critics have failed to appreciate, is that Mario fans are not turning up primarily for a slow burn screenplay workshop. They're turning up to feel something special. They're turning up to be delighted, to be recognized, to be rewarded, to see decades of muscle memory and affection turned into cinema. That does not mean that story doesn't matter. Of course it matters, but there are different kinds of satisfying. And the Super Mario Galaxy movie gives me a kind of satisfaction that a more balanced film might not. It gives me the kind of satisfaction of seeing this universe treated like it matters. It gives me the kind of satisfaction of seeing the Galaxy games, which are among the most imaginative and beloved things Nintendo has ever made, translated with scale, beauty, and real affection. And above all, it gives me the satisfaction of constantly thinking, oh wow, they remembered that too. That is not nothing, that's the whole point. And the worlds are a huge part of why it works so well for me. The visual design here is gorgeous, truly gorgeous. Even critics who were cooler on the film generally praised the animation and the spectacle. Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus, mentioned that a few times, we're going to mention it again, explicitly says that the visuals are out of this world. And then the Rotten Tomatoes Reviews Roundup described the film as stunningly animated. One of Metacritic's more positive notices from the Seattle Times says that every square inch of the screen is packed with game-derived imagery, and argued it really needs to be seen on the big screen to do it justice. And I completely agree. I saw it in 4DX at Cineworld Leicester Square, and when I walked out, I was grinning ear to ear. Not because I thought, well, that was a tightly structured dramatic exercise, no. Because my retro itch had been scratched on an industrial scale. Because it felt like the film knew exactly who I was and exactly what I wanted from it. Because it gave me worlds that felt worthy of Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2. Both Wii games were just magical. Spent hours and hours playing them. Not just mechanically, but emotionally and aesthetically. This film has scale, color, movement, strangeness, serenity, sudden beauty, the same things that the games had. It honors that side of Mario. It gives you the sense of cosmic play that made those games so beloved in the first place. And when you layer that on top of all the little extra nods in the film to Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, Super Mario Odyssey, and the broader Nintendo history, the whole thing starts to feel less like a normal sequel and more like a celebration. And that is what I love the most about it. Not just that it references old games, but that it references them with confidence and warmth. There's a difference between fan service and affection. This film for me lands on the affection side of that line. It's not just jingling keys in front of you. It's saying, you've been here for a long time. We know that. We respect that. Here's something for you. And that is why I bristle a little at harsher reviews. Because I think what they're reviewing is the wrong contract. If the contract is, deliver a universally acclaimed standalone animated screenplay that converts every skeptic, then fine, maybe it falls short. But if the contract is, make a film that Mario fans will walk out feeling euphoric, then I think it succeeds brilliantly. And honestly, the voice cast deserves a lot of credit for that. Chris Pratt as Mario works much better for me in these films than a lot of people have ever wanted to admit. Charlie Day continues to be a very natural Luigi, captures his essence so well. Anna Taylor-Joy's Peach has real authority and heart. Jack Black remains a superb Bowser, funny, theatrical, committed. He's never half doing it for the paycheck. I mean, he's sort of half doing it at certain points, but you'll see what I mean when you watch the film. And the new additions genuinely work. Brie Larson's Rosalina has a calm, luminous quality. Donald Glover, he brings such warmth and charm to Yoshi. Loved it. Benny Safdie's Bowser Jr. gives the film real energy, and the wider supporting cast sort of helps expand the world without making it feel random. Rotten Tomatoes, they're back, Metacritic, and the major cast listings all line up on those core and new cast roles, and they all acknowledge that they've all done pretty well. Yoshi in particular is exactly what I wanted. He feels like Yoshi. That probably sounds like a very basic compliment, but with adaptations, it really isn't. You don't always get that. Sometimes a studio reimagines a character, or what you actually get is a recognizable name attached to a completely different personality. That is not the case here. Yoshi feels right. Rosalina feels right. Bowser Jr. feels right. They all feel like versions a lifelong player would recognize and immediately accept. And to me, that matters more than whether the plot could have used another 10 minutes of breathing room. Now, one thing I want to praise is how quickly the film gets you invested in the relationship between Peach and Rosalina, because that's not easy. A film moving at this pace does not have huge amounts of time to build emotional bonds the old-fashioned way, and yet I thought it handled the relationship very deftly. Rosalina brings a different energy into the movie universe, a more reflective, cosmic, emotionally open energy, and the way Peach responds to that creates a lovely dynamic very quickly. It gives the film a softer center without slowing the whole machine down. That won't work for everyone, and I understand why some critics found the emotional side undernourished. That's a word, isn't it? But for me, it landed. And it landed because the film gets the characters right fast. This is actually one of the things Nintendo adaptations increasingly understand. You do not always need long, heavy scenes to make a character click. Sometimes you need one or two beautifully judged moments, the right visual framing, the right musical cue, the right voice performance, and the accumulated goodwill of decades of gaming storytelling sitting in the audience's memory. This film knows it's speaking to people who already love these characters, and it uses that to its advantage. Again, that is not a flaw, that is intelligence. The other thing critics may be underrating is just how pleasurable the pace is when you're on the film's wavelength. Yes, it moves fast. Yes, it sometimes barrels from one wonder to the next. But if those wonders are landing for you, the pace becomes momentum rather than emptiness. It becomes exhilaration. It becomes, go on then, show me the next gorgeous thing. That was my experience. Each magical excursion had me fully invested because the film kept earning my goodwill through beauty, design, familiarity, and sheer enthusiasm. I was not sitting there thinking, this scene transition might benefit from a more contemplative stillness. I was thinking, this is awesome. And that matters too. Now, I do want to be respectful to the critics I disagree with because some of the criticism is completely understandable. Rotten Tomatoes editorial roundup, they're back, guys. They said critics broadly saw the sequel as flashy, fun, and made for fans, but unlikely to win over newcomers. The Hollywood Reporter said it was relentlessly fast-paced and filled with hyperkinetic visuals, but also suggested that this is basically the sweet spot for its intended audience. Polygon from Metacritic essentially said people wanting a more mature plot or heavier emotional weight should adjust their expectations now. And you know what? I more or less agree with all of that. I just draw a very different conclusion from it because I'm not looking at this film and saying it failed to be something. I'm looking at it and saying it succeeded magnificently at being itself. That is the key difference. I do not need the Super Mario Galaxy movie to become the Spider-Verse. I do not need it to become Pixar. I do not need it to become some emotionally devastating mediation or meditation on loss and cosmic insignificance and then throw in the mushroom power-ups. No, I need it to make Mario fans happy. I need it to feel like Nintendo knows why these characters have lasted. I need it to take the memory of dying over and over again on old levels, collecting stars, racing through galaxies, getting battered in Mario Kart, and pouring silly amounts of time into these worlds, and pay that investment back in joy. For me, it absolutely did that. Maybe that's why the audience reaction has been so much stronger than the critical response. Rotten Tomatoes our audience score is 89%, with the audience summary calling it an instant replay. You can't do much better than that. Metacritic's user score is healthier than the critic score. AP is reporting strong box office polling and a very sturdy box office hold. That suggests this isn't just going full fanboy and losing all perspective. There is a real gap here between what many critics wanted and what many viewers actually enjoyed. And I think I know why. For a lot of critics, references are frosting. For fans, references are the cake. That is a very different emotional charge. When this film nods to Mario 3, Mario World, Odyssey, the Lumas, the Galaxy games, the broader shape of Nintendo's history, it's not just spot the Easter egg. It's remember who you were when you first played this. It is remember the controller in your hands. It's remember trying to get through level 8 and 4 on the NES and feeling like you've been drafted into war. And when a film can tap into that, that is powerful. That is cinema too. Now, we got to talk about the post-credit scenes. You waited a long time. Well done. Let's talk about them. These are very important. The film has multiple bonus scenes. The mid-credit scene brings back Lumily as the prison guard for Bowser and Bowser Jr., which is already funny enough. But then the final post-credit stinger is a big tease. It introduces Princess Daisy, at the Gateway Galaxy when Yukiki tries to steal from a passerby and gets stopped by her instead. That is a concrete tease that the film leaves us with. Daisy is on board now, and no, that doesn't directly confirm Vario, but as a fan reading the tea leaves, it absolutely keeps the door open for more of Mario's wider character bench in the next film. Really hoping for Vario. Daisy's arrival makes the world feel bigger, another princess. And once you start widening the royal and rival corners of the Mario universe, fans naturally are going to start thinking about who might be next. Wario is not teased explicitly in that scene. Let's be honest about that, let's be precise about that. But the broader logic of the expansion makes him feel like a very plausible future arrival. That part is my inference, not an announced fact, by the way. And that is another reason I'm so positive about this film. It does not feel like a dead end. It feels like a confident next chapter. It feels like Nintendo and Illumination understand that this audience will keep showing up if you keep treating the material with affection. Which, to be fair, they are. The sequel was always going to be judged in a funny way because the first film did two things at once. It won over a lot of fans and it made ridiculous money. That means the sequel arrives with both expectation and scrutiny. Critics seem to have decided that because it's faster and less interested in winning over outsiders, that makes it lesser. I don't buy that. In my opinion, it's better than the predecessor. I know that will not be the consensus. I know some people prefer the cleaner simplicity of the first movie, fair enough. But for me, the sequel is richer, more beautiful, more generous, more rewarding, more ambitious visually, and more plugged into what I actually love about Mario. It's less cautious, less introductory, less worried about explaining itself to people who've never touched a controller, and that is exactly why I responded to it so strongly. I have loved this franchise for more than 3 decades. Reward me. Reward my obsession, reward the hours, reward the losses, the retries, the stars, the secrets, the music, the sports games, the spin-offs, and the endless loyalty to a plumber who somehow became one of the great constants of pop culture. That is what this film does. So yes, respectfully, I disagree with the critics. Not because they're stupid or they don't know what they're talking about. Not because I think the narrative criticism is invalid. No, of course, everybody's got their own opinion. I respect that. But I disagree because I think they're underestimating the actual achievement of this film. This film knows its audience. It knows what they cherish. It knows what they will feel. And it delivers. I walked out of that 4DX screening at Leicester Square grinning like an idiot. Happy, satisfied, seen. My retro itch scratched. My fandom rewarded. My faith in Nintendo's ability to turn pure game feeling into cinema very much intact. So my verdict is simple. If you're not a Mario person, you may well find the Super Mario Galaxy film too fast, too busy, too reference heavy, too unconcerned with conventional storytelling depth. Fair enough. You might not, by the way, but you might, and that's fair enough. But if you're a real Mario fan, the kind of fan this movie is plainly made for, I think there's a very good chance you will have an absolute blast. Not despite the references, because of them. Not despite the pace, because on its own joyous wavelength, the pace is a part of the thrill. Not despite its devotion to the games, but because the devotion is the whole magic trick. The critics saw a hyperactive animated film. I saw a glorious thank you to everyone who's loved Mario for years. And honestly, I think I saw the better film. That's what I think anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, this review, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out some of the other great content that is on here. Thank you so much for supporting. I will see you soon.